Welcome back to the Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton. I'm Connor Williams, joined by Terry McAllister, and this is our Everton 2022 to 2023 season preview. Just going through our thoughts for this season. First of all, start off, what are your thoughts going into this season? Let me know if you're confident, how you're feeling about it.
I don't think confidence is the word I'd use. I'll be honest, I was feeling far more optimistic. And by that, at no point have I felt like Everton are going to go into this season and do big things. But I was getting more optimistic about, being safe and stable in the league and sort of putting a foundation down to build from, get rid of the uncertainty around the club at the minute and finish anywhere between 14th and 10th, something like that. Just a nice drama-free season. That was sort of fed by the business we've done so far. So we have signed James Tarkowski. I'm a big fan of that sign. I think it's pretty sensible. I'm a fan of Dwight McNeil. I know not everyone is, but I think he'll be a good player. I think he's an Everton player. When I see him, I just think he'll do well at the club and he'll carve out a career here. At the time of recording, it hasn't been completed, but the Idrissa Gana Gueye coming in alongside Tarkowski, I said in another video, huge for us, massive boost for me, for my feeling about the club. Okay, it's very short term, but it fortifies the soft centre of this team. It adds organisation, adds steel, adds security to how I'm feeling. But again, this is being recorded on the night that it's come out that Dominic Calvert-Lewin has picked up an injury. Now, there's no news yet on how long that would last, but if he has picked up any kind of injury that'll keep him out for a prolonged period like he did last season, then we're in serious, trouble, because alongside Richarlison, that's all the goals that were in our team have gone out of it. So we, probably better to revisiting this video when the transfer window shut, because we will need one way or the other, whether we need to, bribe the Premier League, take a fine, whatever, but we need to bring some strikers in, not just striker, plural, strikers. We need someone who can lead the line week in and week out, and someone who can compete with them. We, even if it's, one's a free or a loan and one we have to buy, I don't know, but we need to bring in reinforcements up front, because nobody in this team has got a track record for goals apart from Dele Alli, and his track record for goals was playing up alongside Harry Kane. So you can't even bank on that. Everyone else has not got a history of scoring a large amount of goals that are available to us right now.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. I said the other day to somebody who asked me, they were like, what would you take this season? I was like, anything above staying up. But I was like, 14th wouldn't be an awful season. And I know people will probably watch this being quite annoyed or disappointed, disgruntled with 14th, because I don't think it's what anybody wants to hear somebody say when we've got a club that's spent as much money as us. But when you look at the previous season, and like you mentioned, there's already players that are big players getting injured in Dominic Calvert-Lewin. I don't think 14th's a bad place, Mark. It is disappointing, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it like, oh yeah, I'd be thrilled with that. But compared to last season, as long as we don't have the roller coaster we had for the last half of last season, I'll be pretty chuffed. But yeah, it's interesting. You mentioned the players and Dwight McNeil and stuff. And as of recording, we are rumoured to be after a couple of strikers. I couldn't name you a name because there seems to be a new name every week. And then you'll have two sources saying one name and another source completely debunking that. But now that we've got, potentially got Gueye at the time of recording, it is one of those positions that's starting to look a little bit more damaging, almost like needing a six was a week ago. It's starting to look like strikers, that same position now, where we need numbers. Like you said, Richarlison very much led the line last season. He's now gone. So just give me your thoughts on the players, not just the players, but like Frank Lampard, the 3-4-3 we've been playing in the pre-seasons. What your thoughts are from I know they're only pre-season friendlies, but they do give you an inkling of the thought and the method behind the team?
Well, historically, I do like the 3-4-3 formation, but I've never liked it for Everton. Not for any stylistic thing, but I always looked at our players and thought they can't play it. Like Michael Keane, has never been able to play it. The others aren't great at playing it. It doesn't suit the key personnel. It suits some, obviously, but not enough. Whereas the start of the pre-season, you look at the friendlies, like we played 4-3-3 against Minnesota and got battered. We had Tom Davis in the sixth. But since they've come back from the US tour, the team have played 3-4-3 both occasions against Blackpool and against Dynamo Kyiv. And I wasn't at Blackpool, but I was at the Kyiv game. And I was sitting in the upper Bullens and I didn't really watch the game as you would watch a game normally. I just went out my way to analyse and sort of observe, because I'm sad, the shape of the team and how like the new players like Tarkowski fit in and whatnot. And everyone looked a lot more comfortable in a back three with Tarkowski. Keane, when he was in the middle of the three, looked more comfortable, like being led by a leader centre back like Tarkowski. The wing backs, they looked comfortable. I think there's a little bit of work to do on a couple of things. Like Michaelenko needs to get his crosses away early. He dawdles on them a little bit. He doesn't hit them first time. He allows the opposition defender to set. Patterson, very good going forwards, obviously. But his defensive game, it's not awful, but it's not as strong as Michaelenko's, for example. They sort of the inverse of each other. But he's got Ben Godfrey on his side with his pace, who can get him out of trouble quite a lot if needs be. And then I looked at other players around that. I thought, Anthony Gordon and Damari Gray seem to be very similar. They sort of get the ball and just want to run at their marker. They don't really want to move into. They don't attack space. They attack their marker. They attack the opposition player. So a player like Dele Alli or Dwight McNeil, it'll be one of them with one of Gray and Gordon. In my view, I think that's what we'll probably see, where you get a mix. It's one who's looking to create chances and one who's looking to drive at the opposition. And then the biggest thing was just the centre of midfield. It was Decore and Iwobi against Kyiv, and I thought they did really well. I think it'd get eaten alive in a Premier League game just because there's no strength in the tackle there. But if we do bring in Idrissa Gana Gueye, then that changes everything, changes the shape of the whole team. But the shape I'm happy with. The personnel, almost, we still need striking reinforcements. We needed that before the Calvert-Lewin injury. We certainly need it now. Someone who can put the ball in the net. There's no point having a strong structure and then you can't score. And the manager, I'm yet to be convinced. I think Lampard talks really well. I think he's a young coach who's going to get better. But I'm not in the loving for Lampard. I'm not in the everything he does is great camp yet. I'm still yet to be convinced. The jury's out for me. I still think there's other managers out there who might be better suited to Everton, but who knows? I could be wrong. It's Frank at the minute, and we'll see how we go.
Yeah, no, I fully agree with all of that. But especially the Lampard one, I'm still, when we got him, I was a bit hesitant because I think he's still, in a nice way, very young into his managerial career, and we're a club with a lot of, for all how much people say we're a good club for him because of what we can give him. I think we've also got a lot of problems. It's a bit of pressure for a young manager. So the jury's still out for me as well. Obviously, hope he does well, but it's a little bit too early for like you said. I'm not fully in love with him yet. It's interesting though. I do see a lot of media outlets predicting he might be the first manager to get the chop. Obviously, we discussed it the other day, didn't we? In a chat that we have. And I've spoke to a couple of my friends, and they all say they were saying as well. They support the clubs. They were saying Lampard might be the first one to get it. Give me your thoughts on that. Like, part of me thinks maybe because of the sort of the way, the reputation of our board and how quick we are to chop managers. Well, perceived to be anyway. There's an argument that we actually keep them too long when this stuff goes to the dogs, isn't there? That some would argue. But yeah, just because we've gone through that many so far, it makes me a little bit hesitant. But then I think there's other managers that might be a little bit, might be sweating a little bit more than he is.
Yeah, I mean, there's no way on earth he'll be the first to go. That doesn't mean he won't be sacked in the season. But yeah, the reason he's the favourite is because it's the club's fault. The club's now got a reputation in recent history of letting managers, sacking managers, despite the fact, as you say, some of them needed to go earlier. The average lifespan of an Everton manager is 18 months in the last since Managerial came in, especially when previous to that we had very long-term managers and weren't a sacking club. But it's also, if we put Guardiola or Klopp in, then they would be sort of immune to that. So it's a double-edged sort of sword. It's like Lampard has not shown anything that makes him seem like he's too good to be sacked, and we're a club who's in the habit of sacking. With the way the club are trying to operate now, given the financial restrictions they're under and the realities they face, I think they'll be very, very reluctant to sack any manager. Now, I think the only way Lampard gets sacked is if we're in the sort of danger zone at the end of the season where there's 7-8 games left and we're in the bottom three. I don't think it'll be like, we're certainly won't be a case of we're 15th in December and we'll pull the trigger. No, it'll be when it's time to panic, they'll hit the panic button, but I don't think they'll be jumping at it. They'll be looking for any reason not to press it at the minute.
Yeah, the financial aspect is a really good point. I think with the current situation, they're not going to want to. I think we're already paying out compensation still for a lot of the managers that we had years ago, so I don't think the club will be that willing. Coincidentally, I said to a mate though this week, if Lampard gets sacked, it's got which Owen will be absolutely brilliant, buzzing if it happens, but it's got Sean Dyche coming in all over it. I think because, like you said, to be sacked, we'd have to be a bit where they look at it like, we're at the wayside. Unless you go for we've had your Allardyces, I think he's the next steady man, and he's a bit better than Allardyce in the fact he'll stay with your team and build something as well. He's not quite as mercenary. I've kept you safe, off I go.
Yeah, I mean, Sean Dyche will be the sword of Damocles over a lot of managers this year, because he's such a safe pair of Premier League hands, and his reputation I don't believe it's been particularly damaged by his sacking at Burnley. I think most outsiders in football thought that was a ludicrous sacking. Whether it was or not is immaterial. That's the perception. So obviously the big jobs, he's not going to be linked with any of them, but we would be prime. He'll be linked to us if we have a bad spell. He'll be linked to Leicester. He'll be linked to Newcastle. He'll be, Newcastle as they are now. Maybe in the future they'll be looking at the Pochettinos of the world and stuff. But anyone outside the top six, the Sky Six, will have a Sean Dyche. Sean Dyche burning a hole in their phone book, their Rolodex. They'll be desperate to ring him anytime they come under a bit of pressure. I think I'm with Owen. I never used to be in the Dyche club, but I am now. I think obviously a lot of water has passed under the bridge since he was first linked with Everton. Obviously our situation has worsened a lot. We need stability. We need we need what Sean Dyche would bring. So I'm not saying sack Lampard and get Dyche, but I could see it happening, and I wouldn't be against it if it did happen at some point. I think it's a very good fit for all involved, but hopefully it never comes to that, because it means we're doing badly if it does.
Yeah, fully agree. I never was keen, because I just thought, with the ambition we were showing, we were going to bright lights, almost like Newcastle fans are probably looking at it now. But now I think of it, if it did happen, which I hope it doesn't, because it means we are doing poorly, I would be a bit I would be fully on board with that now. Speaking of the wider Premier League now, with some predictions, who do you think is going to win the Premier League this season? Obviously, you've got Liverpool and City. Do you think anyone else, or do you think it'll be those two? And which one do you think pips it?
Liverpool. I think to win it a third time in a row is it's hard. Not many clubs ever do that, and not many. Those clubs that have done it didn't have a team chasing them like Liverpool. So although they've lost Sadio Mane, they brought in Darwin Núñez, they brought in Luis Diaz. They've got Jota there. They've got plenty of firepower, plenty of goals, and they've retained Salah. So the best forward, the best goal scorer in Europe is still on their books. So they're not gonna. You would need Liverpool to drop off and to have a season of transition for their pressure to relent, and it's not going to, because they're not going to be going through a transition. They've only lost one of their front men and brought in, and there's been several brought in over the time to replace them. City, yeah, they're just as strong as ever, but they're going to switch. They're switching in style. They're not just switching in personnel. They've got Erling Haaland's up front, and he's a quality player. I think he'll be the best striker in the world, but it might not be this season. The City players are going to have to learn, to play with him. They're not playing with, Sterling anymore, who's going to be that back post tap in. So, I mean, I hope I'm wrong. I'd much prefer City to win. If you made it up to me, you'd say you've got to pick one who's going to win. I'd pick City, obviously, because, it's an Everton channel, let's be honest. But, I think it will be Liverpool.
Yeah, the City point is a great point. I think he even said, didn't he, after the Community Shield, that they're learning to play with an out-and-out striker again, which is something that I think people need to bear in mind this season with him. We'll do the other end. Who do you think goes down this season? Give me a 3 to go down.
I think Bournemouth, Fulham, and Southampton.
Yeah, but I definitely Fulham. I think definitely go down. I think Silva's going to have a horrid time of it. Bournemouth again, and I'd have to say Southampton as well. I think I like Hasenhuttl, but I think he's danced around it a little bit too much, and eventually it gets you.
I hope it's not us. I think it's very hard to predict, because no one would have had us down there last season after finishing on 59 points the year before. You never know what could happen. The only one I would say with confidence that I think rain or shine, they'll go down, would probably be Bournemouth. I wouldn't be shocked to see Fulham stay or Southampton stay. I think Bournemouth are the only one that I'd put money on to go. With the rest, it's anyone's guess.
Yeah, I'm just relieved. Relieved you didn't say us. Speaking of us, though, where do you think we will finish this season?
It's hard to say. Due to the injury. If you'd have asked me this before the Calvert-Lewin injury, I'd have probably said 12th, whereas now I'm thinking 14th, 15th. Doesn't mean we can't be 10, 12, 15 points clear of the drop. But I don't think I think there's a lot of clubs who are further along in their development where we've had to reset somewhere, whether we wanted one or not. But we did need one, whether we wanted one or not. But we've had to reset somewhere, and there's other clubs, the likes of Palace, the likes of Wolves, who, these aren't amazing teams, but they're far more settled. They're far more developed than we are. We're starting again. We're introducing, not just the players we signed this summer, but Michaelenko's first full season in the Premier League, Patterson's first games in the Premier League. There's a lot of key positions in our squad who are very different from that Ancelotti team. There's no Luca Dean, there's no Sigurdsson, there's no James, there's no Richarlison. There's probably for long spells not going to be any Calvert-Lewin. So we need to basically build and establish a new team, and that will include the Tarkowskis, hopefully the Idrissa Gueys, but it'll also have Patterson, Michaelenko, McNeil. Gordon will, having his second season in the Premier League. There's a lot of young players. And, sometimes young players have a troubled second season, and it's, ideally you'd be a well-established, strong Premier League team so you can just weather that. But we're in the position where we need everyone to stand up, because we're not nailed on to stay in the league currently.
Well, my next question was going to be, coincidentally, when you mentioned players, who do you think is going to be our biggest player this season?
Tarkowski. I think he is the key to our defensive strength. I think having a dominant centre-back who wins a lot of balls in the air, who stays fit, who leads the defence, will have a huge, huge uplift on the other players. And you saw last year, the few games we managed to get Yerry Mina on the pitch, we looked a different team. Whereas if to put Tarkowski in that role, I think he'll earn us a lot of points. I think he'll be key for us. I'll go so far as say he'd probably be the player of the season before the season's even kicked off, just because of the positive effect he'll have on the whole team, not just with his own performances, but with what he brings out of others. He'll make others play better.
Yeah, I'm certainly excited to see him play, because he's, like you said, he's a level-headed as well, the leader. Hopefully helps towards this set-piece problem that we had last season and saw inklings of in the pre-season, having somebody like him in your defensive. And also, I've seen a couple of people mention it, not that we didn't know it already from watching him in his time in the Premier League, but he's similar to Mina in a bit of, he winds attackers up, he gets in their head. I try not to use the term because it's got a swear word. I don't know how that works with YouTube, but he's a wind-up merchant. He's one of them. He's just like Yerry Mina, because I remember, I think it was Mina did it to Bamford and Havertz last year. And when you've got a player like that as well who can back it up with ability, he's a horrible person to play against.
Yeah, I just think our biggest problem last season was just we kept conceding goals. Now, obviously, you say, well, we didn't score many either, but Wolves have shown that you don't need to be a free scoring team. If you are solid, you will be safe. You can't achieve much without goals, but you can stay in the Premier League if you're solid defensively. And Tarkowski, if he plays 38 games, will make Michael Keane a 10 times better player. He'll make Mason Holgate a 10 times better player. Ben Godfrey as well. It's like, these are players we are going to have to use, but obviously we've seen what they are without that leader, that alpha centre-back with Yerry Mina when he's not been playing. So to have one, it could go a long way to making us secure in the league and on the pitch.
I fully agree. That is everything we've got time for, guys. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you're not already, and comment down below your predictions for the Premier League. Give us your winners of the league, relegated, where you think we'll finish, and give us your Everton's biggest player of the season. I imagine there might be a few Tarkowskis there. But yeah, let us know all that in the comments, and we'll see you guys very soon.